Question: why have fighting games regressed in their gameplay? I'm not talking about the simplified controls and combos for the filthy casuals argument here. I mean, why has there been such a visible dip in the number and even variety of game modes? Where did World Tour Mode, Tekken Ball, Groove Edit, Mortal Kombat, Tekken Force, Super Story, Specialized Tutorials, or Dip Switches vanish off to? Those are a small collection from off the top of my head, but frankly, it's a list that keeps on growing. I remember when I first wrote in some blog that since the popularity of Xbox Live, fighting game modes devolved into arcade versus training, online, and survival if you're lucky. Little would I then realize that apparently with subsequent releases, not only survival, but apparently arcade mode is now open to removal in the ongoing process to narrow an already turned niche audience to an even further niche player base. What kills me even more is the simple fact that it doesn't work. Take the big hyped installment of the newest Street Fighter and compare it to a title that was once compared on occasion to fighting games, Overwatch. Both have colourful and unique characters. Both have made tracks to establish a lore with world building and such through character profiles, comics, or even general clarifications to old material once made ambiguous in its canon status. And both have gameplay involving combat that, story-wise, often makes no sense. The difference? Well, where Overwatch launched with proper versus AI support, a progression system with working microtransactions, a timed novelty game mode that changed to new gimmicks with the passing weeks, a private game mode with features that allowed you to customize the game further, and even a few match types in the quick play mode from the King of the Hill inspired control, the payload inspired escort, a control point capturing assault mode, and even a hybrid mode that starts as an assault before turning into escort should the attackers take the first phase. All the while, Street Fighter V had none of that. Except some sticky notes promising that they will fix and totally promise to deliver all the things they had scheduled for the very specific date of insert month after February here, 2016. The worst part is, post-release didn't really work out much better for Street Fighter V, even with disregards to the missed milestones. Sure, they released 6 new characters, but only if you could cough up the cash in-game through drip-fed ranked match wins, or through opening up your wallet. It finally released Cinematic Story that promised for months to the fanfare of more fanboys demanding arcade mode. Costumes that were exclusive to those who were willing to open up their wallet, including Halloween costumes, and some stages were unveiled with all the enthusiasm of an eye roll. And the daily missions for extra fight money beyond online wins was released just in time for all 7 people that were still playing the blasted game. Meanwhile, Overwatch gave 2 characters for free, along with continuing their support for more loot box goodies, including summer and Halloween exclusives, more brawls including, again, seasonal exclusives, an inbuilt competitive system with unlockable goodies for it, a revised quick play to more emulate the competitive system, while the older quick play got moved into a gameplay section containing a playlist of inactive brawls, a play mode with randomized characters, a 3v3 and 1v1 arena mode. Said gameplay section, with weekly player milestones for extra loot boxes, was called, and this is worth a giggle, Arcade! Is it really any wonder then why fighting games aren't as popular as first-person shooters, despite fighters forgetting more game modes than any single shooter could hope to have? The problem is, they're forgetting in the first place. It should be telling that the games that actually try new modes or are scavenging to recover their old ones are the same games that distance themselves as far from the fighting game genre as possible. Oh, WWE 2K17 isn't a fighting game. No. It's a sports game. Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2? No, that's not a fighting game. It's an action RPG. Yeah, that's right. Heck, Smash Brothers. One of the biggest fighting communities alive. Forget its detractors. Its own developers insists that Smash Bros. Isn't a fighting series. It's some kind of platforming party series, according to Nintendo. Why are all the considered fighting games streamlining their game modes here? Can't be mass market appeal, otherwise Street Fighter 4 would not have outsold Street Fighter 5 with its bigger roster and more game modes. Can't be some sense of arcade purity, forgiving Street Fighter 5's exclusion of the arcade mode. Even arcade games were trying to expand game modes, particularly the time-locked extra characters, modes of play, dramatic battle, and final boss game modes of Street Fighter Alpha 3. Are they doing it as some cynical placation of a niche base and reap maximum profits from the saved expenses? I would suppose so, but even that seems to be failing quick, with games far underselling projected targets. This leads to the, at the time of this recording, recent news that sparked this little video: the rumours of Marvel vs. Capcom 4. While I am labouring on the side of thinking this is not happening, given comments from Ryo Tanitsuma, Marvel vs. Capcom 3's director, the idea of a failed fighting game crossover, forcing the series to go underground and subsequently lead into a dark age of the genre all over again is, in my mind, almost inevitable should these rumours prove true. It isn't exactly like Marvel vs. Capcom 3 was a stranger to the pitiful game mode selection virus of other fighting games. Even after the free event mode DLC that got tossed in late in its life and ultimately forgotten, if you'll pardon the pun, in time for Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, which, again, needed post-launch fixing to add one whole game mode, without even transferring the Shadow Battles or Event Mode games of the original. Frankly, I expect Marvel vs. Capcom 4, if it is coming out, to have even less characters and somehow remove AI altogether. Of course, I would rather be wrong here. So, in the unlikely event someone with influence or power hears this, I want to say, Capcom, screw it. All fighting game developers, please, give up trying to be the next big esport. All this focus on launching for the competitive scene and delaying updates to collaborate with tournament schedules, it's all just left with a product, for the most part, that's only being played by people whose livelihoods depend on it. Trying to force a competitive game has left you with bare launch titles that no consumer has reason to believe will ever be worth the full price later. So why not just focus on a fun, varied fighting game first, and then contemplate the tweaks for esport viable competition? It's hardly a novel idea, even for fighting games. Google some fighting game matchup data for, I don't know, Marvel vs. Capcom 2 or Street Fighter 3 Third Strike. Screw it. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Heritage for the Future. You'll notice matchups that can go as far as 7-3 or even worse. Despite that, and the fact that there's no major tournaments run for these games anymore given their age, fans, for the most part, don't have their sponsors' initials for titles, has stuck around on GGPO, on Fightcade. In fact, they're probably the most populated games on those platforms when available. I mean, who cares about Magneto, Sentinel, Storm, or Cable being atrociously high tier? The fans that are still playing Marvel vs. Capcom 2 will still have fun even if they're playing as like Servbot or Zangief. After all, it's hardly like they need to worry about some competitive scene that will be necessary to sign up for fight money for their freaking sponsors. If you build a game with features that has people wanting in and staying in, then no matter the balance, a competitive scene will bend the rules backwards to make itself viable. I mean, come on. There's still a competitive scene for Catherine, that odd puzzle title about love and adultery by Atlas. Now that I think about it, even Catherine had multiple game modes. Between its story, its survival runs, cooperative, competitive, and even like some alternate single-player harder difficulty set of puzzles. Seriously, fighting game developers, Please take notes from shooters, pass fighters, and even apparently puzzle games, and just give us more game. I've been GB, and until the final boss of Tekken 7 challenges you to a game of Tekken Ball, stay out of trouble.